Many more have called, emailed, written to express their support and regret at not being here. They're on opposite coasts, they're across the world, other continents. We did get a special request from Hillary Clinton and Rand Paul to be here, but we told them, no, this is not a political event. We will not be used for superficial political reasons. That being said, Greg has asked me to welcome our special honored guest in the front row here from the Democratic Party and the card-carrying members of the ACLU. Well, since there are no more students here at Paso High that have had Greg as a teacher, it's altogether that we, those who worked with him, taught alongside this funny, brilliant man, that we bear witness to his legacy. I want to give special thanks to Randy Nelson and his fine staff for standing in our corner as we've signed petitions, we've created Facebook groups, we've sent letters across the street, all advocating for one way to recognize Greg's legacy, that is the naming of this building, our home here on campus, as the Williams Wing. I'd also like to recognize that the work is paying off. This is a really special month. The truth is, though, that Greg never really left the campus. His impact on us, on his fellow teachers and students, continues to be felt, and his name lives on in this building every day we teach. And later this month, we're confident that the Paso Robles School District will formally adopt this place of learning with a simple yet eloquent moniker, the Williams Wing. One of the things that Greg did so ably here, one of many, was that he worked with the international students. And so in honor of the wonderful international exchange program Greg helped cultivate and flourish and nourish, we have some of this year's foreign ambassadors who will offer their greetings to Mr. Williams in a way that may be familiar to Greg and to many of you. So we'd like to welcome the international exchange students.
Hello. Monsieur William, je vois que certains de vos directeurs de formation sont ici aujourd'hui, mais ne soyez pas trop fiers, ils ne sont venus que pour la nourriture gratuite. So, in English, Mr. Williams, I see some of your former principals are here today, but don't feel too proud. They're come only for the free food.
Slovak language? Slovakia? Vedeli ste, že stredná škola ocenila pána Arnett za najväčšiu pravdepodobnosť dezertovania? In English, did you know that Mr. Arnett's high school back home in the South just honored him by voting him the most likely to succeed?
In Spanish, ¿os acordáis cuando Mr. Brinko ganó el premio de béisbol por intentar apostar por un jugador que había muerto? Do you remember when Mr. Brinko won the Ernie Broglio Award in the baseball poolside banquet for trying to trip a dead player? En Spanish, íbamos a escribir un chiste sobre Carl Wood, pero sabíamos que no estaría aquí después de las 3:15. We were going to write a joke about Carl Wood, but we knew he wouldn't be here past 3:15.ベイビーはここにいるはずでした。でもその時ついに郵便受けを空にしなければならないことに気がつきました。But Bailey was going to be here today, but then he found out he had to finally out his stuffed notebooks.
This is Korean. 당신이 가고 나서 백건물 이름을 지은 이유는 학교 왼쪽 날개로부터 떨어져 있기 때문입니다.
감사합니다.
The real reason we're naming the 100 building after you is because it's located at the far left wings of the high school.
Let's thank our international ambassadors once again. In your programs, you'll see some of Greg's many accomplishments in his biography during his illustrious teaching career at Paso Robles High School. You'll read a few of the many remembrances sent in from around the country and the world, some of the many. Fortunately, we have some of his friends and colleagues who'd like to share a few of their memories with us. One of them, Mark Bradford. Mark?
Thank you. I was proud to teach with Greg since I arrived here in 1993. I taught in that room, he taught in that room. We had a lot of great discussions and debate. Our biggest rivalry was our Dodgers versus that other team. You know, Greg had a lot to do with interactive instruction long before DII and lots of other things. And one of the greatest examples I can recall is Derek Stroud, rather on the conservative side, and Greg Williams, more on the liberal side, were walking down Spring Street, and they came across a homeless person. Derek gave the homeless person his business card and told him to see a friend for a job. And then he took out a $20 bill and gave it to the homeless person. And Greg was very impressed with this. So he found another homeless person a block down the street. We don't have too many in Paso, but they found them. And he walked over to the homeless person and he gave him directions to the welfare office, and then he reached into Derek's pocket and he gave $50. And he says, now you understand the difference between conservatives and liberals. And Greg also served as a baseball coach here at Paso Robles High School. And few really knew of his keen eye as a pitching instructor. This is not very well known. One of his pitchers was having consistent struggling times. So Greg walked out to the mound to have a talk with him, and he said, you know, I figured out your problem. You always lose control at the same point in every game. And the kid said, when is that? And Greg said, right after the national anthem. Greg learned of his winning ways in baseball from How to Be a Better Baseball Player by Ben Schwarmer. And he also learned some of his greatest coaching practices, this is very hard for me to say, by following his beloved Giants. And you know, students know also that Greg can recite all the presidents from Washington to Obama, and he can name all the great milestones in the presidencies, he can name the years, he can name their deaths. You know, he's like a Rain Man when it comes to that. And great historical events too. Did you also know that he knows the mottos of every license plate from every state? Give a shout out if you think you know. I'll give you a couple because he already knows them. He don't want to seem too proud. How about if you know this one? Hell yes, we have electricity. How about this one? Literacy ain't everything. Arkansas. You're going alphabetically. By 30, our women have more plastic than your Honda. California. This one's real easy. Just ask me about our grandkids. Come on, Florida. How about 50 million people and 15 last names?
Arkansas.
Kentucky. How about this one? You're sure to get this one. You want an effing motto? I'll give you an effing motto.
New Jersey.
Jersey! Last one. Si hablo inglés.
California.
That'd be Texas. All right, I got a couple things for you. I was thinking of buying or wearing a Giants hat, but I couldn't do it, but I do have Giants peanuts. And we do have a card expressing our love and gratitude for you from the department. And being a baseball fan also, we do have a ball autographed by each member of the department for him to Greg Williams with our greatest love and admiration. And I do love the man.
Thanks, Mark. I'd like to ask Sandy Buckmoyer to come up here and say a few words. Sandy stood alongside Greg at many a faculty meeting and union meetings and knows all the dirty secrets and may share some with us today, or not. Sandy, come on up.
I think Mr. Land forgets that a counselor's lips are always sealed. We share no secrets. The two ways that I got to know Greg, and one of them was standing up in front of the entire staff and giving compliments to people and sometimes teasing people, but that was Greg's job. And the other way I got to know Greg is his classroom for many years was right there, and my office was right there, and I got to watch on a daily basis what his students got to do. On a beautiful spring day, they got to study outside. If they were having a bad day, they got to study outside those times he was alone. One of the things that the students always remember about Greg, that I remember about my favorite teacher in high school, and I think maybe the only two teachers I know that do that, they always referred to us by Mr. and Ms. and called us by our last names. And I never forgot that about my high school teacher, Mr. Buchanan, because it showed respect. It showed that they respected us. I have two really short stories about Greg. And when we were doing our compliments, these were in the good old days when people complimented each other. And we used to read them. We never practiced. We were both super busy, and I think we thought we were great extemporaneous speakers. So we would just divide them up and start a reading, and sometimes they were funnier than they were supposed to be. And what people didn't know was Greg was whispering in my ear the whole time, little, sometimes naughty phrases about who wrote the compliment, or me, or people who were getting the compliment, and that threw us all off. One time, I'm sure it was only once, we actually offended somebody. And the very next day, that individual did send us an email expressing their anger in 2 or 3 paragraphs. And being me, I thought, well, I'm going to write a couple paragraphs back to you, buddy. You get up there and do this. And before I could sit down at the computer, Greg had answered this individual by saying these famous Greg Williams words: "I humbly apologize. Whatever we did to offend you, please forgive us." And that was the end of it. And I learned a lesson from that. Just sometimes keep your mouth shut and things will go a lot better. That's my sentimental story. My other story is, if any of you remember, sometimes these buildings did not have great heating and air conditioning, or they had none. And there was a famous year when Greg Williams wore nothing but sweats the entire school year. And sometimes people were afraid to ask him about it, and sometimes people did ask him about it, and what he said was, hey, this fits the conditions of my classroom, so until I get my heating and air conditioning fixed, I'm wearing sweats. And Greg Williams wore sweats for an entire school year. That was his way of protesting. That was his very quiet way of protesting. But no matter what I saw Greg doing out my window, or in the staff room, or in a heated debate over politics, there was one word that came to my mind when I was thinking about Greg, and that word was joy. He brought joy to this campus. Whether he was doing the baseball pool, teasing a colleague, getting Derek Stroud into an argument, tossing the baseball back and forth with Mark Bradford on where this building now stands, what used to be a field, or just being with his students, he brought joy to this campus. So I hope that this day will bring just a little bit of that joy back to you, Greg. You will always be here.
So ask our principal, Randy Nelson, to come up and share a few thoughts with us, please. Randy?
Thank you. Before I share a few thoughts, I'd like to invite Tom Harrington, my assistant principal, who has a good story that he'd like to share about Greg. The story that I want to tell you about happened about 2006. And is Matt Drake still, I saw Matt walking around earlier. Matt, could you wave to the crowd, because it's going to... Well, I was sitting in my office, and before school, I had heard two teachers having a heated discussion over politics. And it was, after a few minutes, I noticed it was Matt Drake, it was Greg Williams. The topic was affirmative action. And after a few more minutes, I realized it was Matt that was taking the anti-affirmative action, and it was Greg that was taking the pro-affirmative action. That said a lot. Greg and I didn't always see eye to eye on politics, but all of our discussions were extremely civil. And that's not always the case as we know now in politics. It's become very polarized and very jaded. But I will, and I do miss Greg's perspective on the liberal side of things, because if I needed that viewpoint, I could always go to it. I could go to Greg and say, tell me about this. Because I didn't always identify real quickly with it. So I just wanted to thank Greg for being a liberal and being willing to work with me, a conservative, on helping me to understand how liberals think. And I think I've become a better person, and I've grown for it. So Greg, thank you very much.
Hi.
Wait, who's the black guy here? You were Greg.
You hold your seat behind you.
I came to Pastoral High School in 1997 as a social studies teacher, and was very fortunate to work with Greg as a social studies teacher until 2005 when I became an administrator. And I know Greg will appreciate this, that Pastoral High School Social Studies Department has kind of been a communist rule the last 20 years, with the previous three principals all coming from the Social Studies Department. So I think it's totally appropriate, and I would ask that my predecessors, Ed Railsback and Greg Welsh, join me up here, please.
I'm having a hard time going up them stairs, guys.
The stories. Mr. Chairman.
Well, hello. I didn't come planning to speak, so I'm going to do this off the cuff, which I'm used to do quite a bit.
That's good, Greg. That's good.
For those of you not, yeah, I know, Cal. For those of you not seated, I apologize because I can go a while, but I won't. So many memories. You know, we make fun of liberal and all of that, but the biggest thing I remember about Greg is his professionalism. We sat in that room and watched the Challenger disaster. We sat in that room and watched 9/11, 9/11, excuse me. We have a lot of memories. And it's only fitting that this building is named after Greg. So I'm proud to be up here with him, proud to have worked with him. And I just made an observation today that I never realized. Ed, Randy, and Greg Welch all taught in the social studies department the last 3 principals. So we're waiting on the English department to come through.
Hi, Greggy. Well, Greg and I obviously were neighbors, actually, for a long, long, long time. We did in some debates as well, and I have to say that most of our debates ended with, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. I don't think of myself as a conservative, but I'm certainly not as liberal thinking as my friend here. Touche. Since this is your day, I'm not going to say a thing. I do want to remark on the fact that this is one of the most caring, loving person I've ever met when it comes to the students of this campus. He took many a person under the wing, both known and unknown. He worked hard with all the AFS kids to bring the joy of being part of our community. Worked endlessly on that with a number of other people, but Greg was the enthusiasm in most cases. But then I started thinking about him coaching baseball, and although I have to admit that was somewhat humorous, the point was he was there for the kids. And that's something that can always be said about Greg. I think it's wonderful that they're going to name this wing after you. I also think that it's wonderful that all these people are here to honor you, because you're most deserving, my friend, no matter what you think, because you're wrong again.
So I would like to point out, and I'd like to give a special appreciation to Jeff Land and his colleagues in the Social Studies Department for their continued and dedicated efforts to bring this idea to fruition. We have had great response from the district. The request has to go through a naming committee that's been put in place. There's a agenda item on the June 24th school board agenda, and so we're looking forward to hearing back from the school board at that time, and to recognize you in the way that you should be recognized here. I think the biggest testimony anybody can give is when you turn your child over to somebody, a teacher, and that teacher has a memorable impact on your son or daughter. And I can speak to that firsthand because my youngest son, Todd, went to school here, and to this day thinks of you with such high regard and considers you his most favorite teacher. And he is he's turned out okay, and you didn't damage him too much, that he's aware of. But honestly, as a new teacher here back in 1997, to come onto a comprehensive high school for the first time, and to trying to be learning the ropes to teach, and then have a colleague say, "Hey, would you like to have a student from Sweden come visit your classroom?" It's like, okay, I'm not sure. Why don't you talk to me a little bit about that? But that first year when we had the young man come from Sweden and visit my modern world history classes was such an incredible experience, and it really opened my eyes to the gift that you had worked so hard to provide to the students of our community who were attending Paso Robles High School, to share with them a little piece of the world from all corners of the world. And I'll never forget that, and always appreciate that from you, that your vision for bringing all these international students to Paso Robles, and your tireless efforts to do that every single year and the incredible reward for students who didn't realize it at the time, but I'm sure they do now, just as we do, what a great experience that was. So on behalf of all those students and the staff here at the high school, thank you for the consummate professionalism that you've displayed over your entire career, Greg. You simply are one of the best teachers that's ever graced this campus, and you're very deserving of this recognition today.
You can figure it out by now, we're a little bit fond of this man. By the way, Greg did have his moments of rebellion and principled protest. Besides the sweatsuit escapade, I think the reason we watched September 11th in Greg's room was because he had illegally jerry-rigged a cable connection to his television through the building somehow. I don't know how, but thanks to him, we got to watch a piece of history, and it changed us. He was also ahead of his time on the closed door, the locked door policy that we're enforcing now in the high school. If his students were late, his way to protest was just to lock them out. If it was a spring day, he might send them out. Otherwise, he'd lock them out. So I don't know. You had to be aware.
It was his
of
idea.
But yeah, sometimes you'd see students outside his room locked out, knowing that they'd come too late. They were suffering. They were scratching at the door. Well, he was a coach. He was a union representative. He was a club advisor, department chair, a mentor. Greg really did it all in his 30-something years here. Most of all, though, Greg was a history teacher, and an exceptional one. And you know, I've been asking myself what made him so special, so exceptional, and I realized that it's kind of like asking what makes this country special. It's a simple question that really can't be answered easily. In America, is it the promise of equality, or is it a celebration of a work ethic for those willing to achieve success? Is it the vast expanse of beautiful wilderness, or its gleaming cities? So as a teacher attempting to engage students with the grand and sweeping history of America, Greg truly brought his students the best America has to offer in person, because he was the best America had to offer. You might argue that Greg's larger-than-life presence owed something to his passion for history as a well-told story, his encyclopedic knowledge of presidential history and constitutional law, his ability to humanize the historical experience, and his dogged determination to get history right. You'd also have to allow for his infectious personality and his unique talents, his spot-on impersonations of Dr. Bob Samola, Jim C., who's here with us today, Randy Nelson, his penchant for neatness, his pens neatly organized by color in his front pocket, his thermos of hazelnut, I believe, coffee, occasionally his no-shave Fridays, his quirky mannerisms, his signing hall passes with the names of historical figures. Mr. Musial may use the restroom signed A. Lincoln. Yeah, he would occasionally use fascist leaders too, depending on the political movement. Yeah, a board member was offended when he used Adolf Hitler. But he did have a way of distracting us. In fact, I got a note from President Obama today thanking me for organizing this and distracting from the ongoing scandal over the prisoner exchange. You could examine his Herculean, his out-of-class commitment, his personally crafted lessons, his bowling night field trips with the International Club, his long weekends in the classroom grading packets, and his special stickers and personal notes to each and every student. His video collection that rivaled the Library of Congresses. His personal touch in the Bearcat baseball dugout, and his illustrious tenure as Bearcat baseball commissioner. I would probably argue that Greg's legacy owes much to his uncanny ability to make students feel welcome and intelligent and worthwhile and interesting. He resisted that temptation that many social studies teachers evidently have felt, to leave the classroom and enter the administration building. Greg resisted, and we are grateful, and the students, I'm sure, are grateful for that resistance. His lunchtime classroom was a strange collection of the brilliant and the marginalized. I used to think of it as a sort of United Nations of non-aligned students. Like our Statue of Liberty, Greg's classroom motto could well have been, "Give me your bored, your lonely, your students yearning to freely be themselves," and he celebrated those individual personalities. Greg taught with humility, with humor, with a healthy suspicion of governmental policies, especially Republican ones, which were probably more deserving of suspicion, but we won't get into that. Above all, Greg brought history to life and made it personal. His deep thoughts to start each class, his lifelong connection with former students and colleagues that continue to this very day. It was and continues to be very personal for Greg, and that's why we're here today, because it's personal for all of us. So yes, Greg's legacy is still very well alive here in the Williams wing. And so, let's give it up for Greg. As Sandy mentioned here, right here where this building stands, there used to be a sloping field of well-cut grass, and occasionally after a long day of teaching, Greg and Mark Bradford or some others would, perhaps among you, would pull out old mitts from underneath at your office desks and leave the classroom to toss the ball around. Definite baseball therapy.
It's always curved to the left.
Curved to the left. Given Greg's passion for America's game, it's only fitting that we ask Greg to throw the first pitch in front of the building that will carry his name. So, and it's also appropriate because President Taft actually was the first president to throw a ceremonial first pitch at a baseball game back in 1910, and every president since then has stood on the mound to continue the tradition, and that's why we have the presidential seal in your programs and on this lectern today. So before we do that, it's essential that we all stand in this seventh inning here and stretch and sing "Take Me Out" with the Bearcats. The lyrics are in your programs. Ready? Take me out with the Bearcats. Take me out with the best.
Sorry.
Final Greg Williams, his baseball cap. He's got friends all over the map, so it's teach some more history. We'll make his legacy sing. So it's hip, 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 hooray for the Williams wing. Our resident baseball expert coming out here for the first pitch. Greg, would you do the honors? I think I might have caught some money changing hands there. 2012 election day. He's an honest Republican, but he lost $5. Yes, yes. So we'd like to ask Greg if he has anything to say.
Well, I've been starting for a microphone for a few years now. FDR had some great advice for public speaking. He said 3 B's: be brief, be specific, and be seated. So I'm going to do all three, I think. Necessity. But I just wanted to share, I thought I would have some great philosophical truth, but I don't. I guess I'm more simple than I thought I was. I'm living out my life and having a great time every day. I wanted to share with you a button that I picked up early in the chemotherapy. I should tell you, I got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer 4 years ago, and immediately Linda Crosslade said, you can't be a full-time cancer patient and a teacher. It's just impossible to do it at the same time. So I picked the one I had. So we've been going down to a clinic in St. Louis weekly, and then it went to Santa Monica weekly. It's quite a drive. And but we've been having fun in the meantime. The button I picked up that inspired me said, "Attitude is everything, so pick a good one." And I thought, boy, that answers just about every question I've got. Put me in any situation, attitude is everything. Cindy knows that. In her treatment, Cindy and Bill going across the country. That how you deal with the good and the bad is who you are. And you don't have to wrestle with it if you don't want to. You just accept it and go with it. And what choice have I got anyway? So I met the healthcare professionals. The nurses have been absolutely amazing. I have such respect for those people. Like, back to school night, you get your compliments and you deserve them. And other times you get compliments too. And you kind of get a little bit humble like you should. But I really mean it for these nurses. They invest themselves in you like you wouldn't believe. They're just a part of their recovery package. So I have absolute praise for them. So we've been doing the chemotherapy and dealing with a bunch of different symptoms here and there. I have to apologize. I did something that is explained in Wikipedia somewhere, and I just sort of pulled out a view. I think I'm a private person, I guess I've discovered, and I didn't really want to parade around with cancer and all that stuff. I just wanted to, I wasn't licking wounds, I wasn't depressed. I was watching Giants baseball, I wasn't getting depressed. Well, look at our record. Yeah. I get letters from you, oh, poor Dodger. Straight positions, huh? So, anyway, I've been all right. In fact, that was the other piece of my advice, was not just pick a good attitude, that's very important, but Nathan is my absolute supreme caregiver, my son. I couldn't have done any of this. He's amazing, just amazing. And part of our thing has been that it's not fabled, but it's called a bucket list. That's where you go have fun. And while I still had some strength and could stand, we went and had fun. I'd almost be licking my wounds in the chemo chair. And I said, Nathan, is there a game somewhere? We got to go see it. And he'd get us magic boxes. And the next thing I knew, we were going to go to Atlanta or Detroit or Cleveland. We're going somewhere. And we'd go home, and his job was to book the tickets and rent a car, and got the hotel room, and a nice one. I don't care. Hard. So we would then travel. That's what we did. We've been to about every presidential museum in this country. He tolerates my history real well. And, we drive up to Andrew Jackson's home in Nashville, so I get to talk a little bit about Andrew Jackson, and he's wide awake. He does all the driving, so I get to just puppy dog my way out the window. Relaxing as heck, and I get to think history and tell him stories about this and that. And it was just fun for me. I love it. And I was surprised. One of my favorite trips really surprised me was we did planned and unplanned. Planned was we did the research, and let's go to CNN headquarters in Atlanta. Let's go to the Full Bottling Company. We go to, oh, Dr. King's down there, we gotta go visit him. And all these things. But the weird one was, we thought, well, we better go to Memphis, Tennessee, and you know, you're all going to see Elvis, and we're going to go see where Dr. King was killed at the Ring Motel. On your top of your list, but it's on my list. So we went there and just luxuriously walked up out of our hotel and took a 3-block walk, and we're where Dr. King was. Well, I'm filled with history. I could hardly stand it, so I'm getting over this. And, you know, we talked to Nathan about James Earl Ray and all this stuff, and he was familiar with some stuff and not with others. But I also knew that, and this is what a flexible, great partner he is in driving. We walked out of, we went to University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, had to see where James Meredith integrated the place. You stayed in the car for that, I remember. Yeah, I went and saw that. I saw the statue and everything that had recently desecrated. And then we were heading to the highway again. And if we went left, we went south towards Money, Mississippi. And if we went north, towards nothing. If we went north, we went towards Memphis, Tennessee in our hotel. And I said, Nathan, I'll just throw it at you. You can turn either way you want. You know, you're driving. But if we go south, I can tell you a story about the brutal murder of Emmett Till and how it reawakened the civil rights movement in America in 1955 as Dr. King and Rosa Parks were beginning the Montgomery Boys boycott. If you can tolerate that, I sure would like to see it. So here we go. So there we went. You know, it's 25 miles south. So we headed down that way. Oh, good. So we got to the middle of nowhere in Mississippi, and I thought, my God, I like this. This is fun. What am I doing in Mississippi? I have all these stereotypes I gotta get out of here. But there we were, and we went to this 2-town building where Emmett had said goodbye to a white lady. That was his big crime. He walked out of a store and said goodbye to Mrs. Bryan. Her husband wasn't there. And Emmett was going to be kidnapped and murdered that night, brutally, for what he had done. And it just, the images of his dead body awoke a whole nation of young people saying, how can this be America today? How can we tolerate this? And it really was a powerful lesson for the kids. Yeah, that's one of my DVDs. I can tell the story of that boy, pictures. We did that, and then the funny part comes, I had to get a rock for the building, of course. So I went over there and I looked around, and no cameras, and the historical sign. I was proud of Mississippi for putting a sign out there at least. And I reached down and grabbed my stuff and ran back to the car. I'm not used to stealing stuff. History teacher gets arrested stealing.
What he's not telling you is that there was only one wall in the building left anyway, so there wasn't any.
But it was the Keystone.
Good Lord, don't let all this things out. So anyway, I grabbed the objects and ran back to the rental car, and Nathan kind of looked sheepishly at me and said, what did you just do? And I said, I got a souvenir. I was hiding. So we got in the car and he said, would you take a rock? I said, no, I got the whole damn brick. I took the whole brick from the building. I couldn't stay it. It's now in my bedroom labeled, and there it is. A brick from Money, Mississippi, and Emmett Till. That's my mission. But then, as we were leaving, we were in the fields of Mississippi with nothing except oats and barley, or whatever you want to call it. It's strange. And I had to take a leak, I think. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, because that's where we are. Oh, I took a leak. It turns out that this place was infested with flies or something. Huge flies. Nathan was trying to take a baby from the car. I was worried about that, not you. Things worked out well, but I thought that was the liberation of our trip. That it symbolized what we were doing. That we didn't plan anything, we just did it. And it's a wonderful memory. And, you know, contrast with other trips where we have done very planned things. And that's all part of that bucket list that we sort of invented. And I'm still a little kid, so I can remember each ballpark we've been to, walking up to Detroit State. Nathan's a firefighter in St. Louis, so he stops at all the fire stations, and I watch and get ready to go to the ball game. And the other day we were on the East Coast, and Nathan said, "Hey, Baltimore's at home. You want to go to a game?" I said, "Oh, that's words of magic." Hell yeah. Within a day or two, I was in intensive care, dramatic, let's feed you full of fluids care. And I thought I was dying. It was really miserable. Outside the humid Washington, D.C. area. And I thought, well, I'm still sick. So these days are going to be gone pretty soon, but I get to enjoy those times. I'm very well aware of it. I've been looking forward to today. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. And I think the real powerful part is grandchildren over there someday will walk up to the computers, and I was secretly glad my father's name wasn't Buffalo. I so secretly wanted to join the Wright brothers family. Give those guys that's really going to the Wright brothers. Jeff gave me a building, so I brought it to the day. I thought I'd share it with you. Williams wing. There's no left family I can think of, but I just pictured Matt having to walk in. Matt Drake left wing plays, Matt Drake left wing. He wasn't going to show up. But it's a tremendous honor. I just can't believe it. And you young people in the audience, I envy you your young career and all the creativity you can have. And the access you have to those mind youngs. I didn't brainwash anybody. So it was fair to just get them to think about issues. What they thought was fine with me, as long as they had some solid reasoning. That's all I cared about. And they did most of the time. I learned from them. I just enjoyed being with them. And Sandy's right. I was hired at 19 years of age, and I just always treated them like respect. And I called them by their last name. They're calling an 18-year-old by his last name, and I thought, this is weird. I'm not used to that. So Jody Burks, who broke her leg on the homecoming float, thanks a lot. I can't see the vet ever since. Oh, you're really fair. But it was nice to call everybody by their last name, just out of respect and mutual respect, I call it. I very rarely had a discipline problem. And I think it wasn't like it was a zoo in my class. It was nice and fresh and new, and kids were in their seats, behaved. I guess we were in a row. And we were respectful, and I just loved my time in the classroom. Especially when the administration didn't bug me. So that way, I heard my name at a few board meetings, not very nicely, but apparently the one they really didn't like, even Edwin got sore at this one. We were in 90-degree weather, it seemed like. We were in San Antonio the other day, but Berkeley, like basketball players, they crabs. San Antonio. Ron James, your favorite player. Well, whatever. Oh, yeah, good coach. Boy, I had fun imitating you. You kept doing those darn commercials out there for your Bearcat store. So, all these commercials and every day after school. So Karen Ronnie was at the microphone, and I went in and I said, "Hi, it's Coach C. We got more donuts you can shake a steak at. Let's come out here and we'll give you a dozen free donuts tomorrow morning and a dozen free Bearcat t-shirts. You come out tomorrow morning. It's Coach C, Bearcat store." Yeah, it was fun doing imitations. Bob So Mola just would entertain himself with that. He was a whole show at the Xerox machine. Oh, goody goody, yours, it's all mine. Goody goody. One time at a faculty meeting, someone called him to stand up and give his brief. I told him, hold on. At that time, because he wouldn't let go of your ankle. He'd come after you, he'd get you. So the bulldog got up to walk, and I was doing the play-by-play in the back of the room. And some of my reverend colleagues said, play-by-play action. So I said, well, here comes Bulldog. He's got a mean look on his face. He's approaching his victim. Oh, crap, he's here. Lord, I didn't know that. I throw myself down on that one, but there are so many jokes and fun that we've had around here. Ed, I was going to remind you that you still have baby back from that awful one I did to you. And, already, you don't need to worry. But I've had a lot of fun here, just the jokes. I wasn't going to do a 3 Bs thing. I've got a lot of control here, but I thought, it's just fun to share those stories like that. Greg Welsh, there little ways of dealing things with hilarious. Nicola Kyle, Lord, he was even sick. I think we got him enough things. I drag a lot of people in on my jokes, I guess. But that's the good kind, you plant the seed, you just watch and see what happens. And it's hilarious. Often feels hilarious. Lucky people have short memories. You won't remember the day after. Except when you look at the plaque every time you walk up here. There it is. Doesn't it beautiful? Lord, I thought of a TV show. That's my grandpa, but don't tell anyone. My good story will be going by then. I don't know. But I sure have missed all of you, and I'm hiding only because I don't have any energy except at baseball games. And you're not on my bucket list, I guess.
That's all that matters.
I don't think it's a list you want to be on, don't worry. But I just want to say thank you very much for I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
I'm glad you didn't follow FDR's advice.
He's in a wheelchair too.
Well, as we kind of close things up here, just want to say I want to thank all of you for coming. It really means a lot. Greg embodies really the best of America. He really did inspire his students. He taught them history, made it personal, and I can picture his students all over America, all over the world right now, visiting historical places, stealing things. Labeling them for their homes. No, in truth, he served his country really well. He sang its praises when it was appropriate, and he examined its faults when it was necessary. Abraham Lincoln said that the philosophy of the schoolroom will be the philosophy of the government in the next generation. So Greg believed his students could make a difference in the world, and today they really are doing that, scattered across the globe. They're teachers, they're in government, they're making a difference. And a lot of it has to do with Greg. And so it's with respect and deep and abiding love for Greg Williams that we refer to our teaching home here as the Williams Wing. And so we welcome the naming committee's recommendation and the board's final approval of the Williams Wing, but we are content right now, in this moment, with the love and the goodwill that you all represent, that's here with us today, along with 3 decades of service to Paso High, That alone has consecrated this place. It's really made it sacred ground for anyone willing to carry the torch that you passed to us, Greg. So, thank you for all you've given us. You've changed this place for the better. We'll never forget you as long as we live, and your name will be here long after that. So, long live Greg Williams, and long live the Williams Wing. So once again, thanks for everybody for making it, and I think Greg is going to head home, and Greg, know that we're with you every step of the way.